topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Our first expert, they are so good and so dear to this show that we have them on twice a month, whereas everybody else is on once a month. It's such an important topic, and I got to tell you, it takes a certain type of person to work in the estate planning area. You've got to have such a big heart for others. And the Julia Dean Law Firm definitely has that heart. Julia is traveling today, but it's okay because we got two great attorneys with us, with Kala and Jonathan. Good afternoon. This is your first time.
First timers. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We appreciate all the nice things you said about estate planning lawyers. We'd like to think that we're that good and that compassionate, so we appreciate that.
We try.
Well, your firm has been with us for several years, and we get more letters and emails from our listeners and viewers telling us how much they enjoy the show, and we're just blessed to have you. Cal, let's start off with you. First, tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I'm actually not native to Texas. I grew up in a little town in Illinois, about like 800 people. So, we've got a couple stop signs and that's about it. Then I moved to Kansas. I always joke that I kept getting further and further south. So I went to law school in Topeka, Kansas at Washburn. I focused even there on estate planning and tax. Even from a young age, I wanted to do tax law. And as I realized that tax can be boring, it can be no people involved, you're fighting a lot with the IRS, I liked the component of just getting to know my clients and having them have a real face and helping them, preserve their wealth and take care of their kids and take care of, specific issues that come up with clients. So that's how I ended up in estate planning. I've been in Texas since 2014 when I graduated from law school, and I've been practicing in estate planning since 2015 after I passed the bar. And so I love Houston now. It is home to me. My brother was down here, but he's gone, but my mom is still here. So now it's her home too. I love it here. And yeah, I think I've been practicing for 8 years. I don't know if I said that, but 8 years in estate planning and probate. So that's me. I've been at the Dean Law Firm for a whopping 8 weeks now. But feels like longer, and I love it here. So I'm glad to be on the show and just excited to maybe teach some people something they didn't know.
That's wonderful. Jonathan, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Glad to be here. Glad to be a part of the Julia Dean Law Firm. She's amazing, like you said earlier. I'm actually born and raised in Texas, born in Austin, grew up in Victoria. Then I've been in Houston about 17 years. I went to South Texas College of Law, downtown Houston, been practicing for 13 years, done a lot of work in the estate planning and probate field. So I have many, many years of experience there. Also have experience in oil and gas. I worked in the oil and gas field for a little bit in oil and gas law when I first started practicing. My wife and I actually live right outside of Houston. We live in Richmond area. And it's great. We love it. The Sugar Land area is great as well. We have two dogs. We have two rescue dogs, and we both like to go hiking, and I'm really into music. So just a little bit on the personal side there, but.
Well, we were talking, I'm here in South Florida, but I too am from Texas, grew up in Dallas, went to a little school in Austin called UT Austin. So I know the area, and I know Victoria. Went through there
excellent.
many times going to Corpus Christi. And so, hey, we're all family here. So first of all, and I talk to Julie about this all the time. Cal, we'll start off with you. People hear the word estate planning and they think, oh, I have to be a multimillionaire. I have to have this big estate. And that just isn't true, is it?
No, that's definitely true. And that is something we see a lot. You think, oh, if I don't have $1 billion to protect, what do I care? But there's so much you can do even with a much more modest net worth. First, a lot of times you don't think about it, but your kids need specific things. Not every kid is the same. My brother and I always use this as examples. When my brother was young, he needed a lot of push and drive, and I didn't. There are different things that children need. We can really help people, even with a modest estate, take care of those children, make sure that they're taken care of the best way that the law allows. Also, you just don't want to end up in court with nothing on paper. It's just an expensive headache. It takes a long time. They'll, if you're in Texas at least, and they find out you passed away without a will, they can freeze your bank accounts until they get somebody in charge, because at the end of the day, those banks and stuff are also afraid of being sued. So they don't want to do anything that they're not authorized to do. And if you have an estate plan or a will or a trust, there's just things that can be put in place so that that your loved ones aren't kind of lost when you've passed away, and they're not just putting together pieces that they don't even know what the whole puzzle looks like. So if you've come and seen us beforehand, a lot of times we can make that transition a little bit smoother. So yeah, definitely something we see a lot.
Jonathan, Julie and I talk a lot about how important a will is. And I don't know, a lot of people really learned about wills when we had some really big stars, one of them being Prince, didn't even have a will. I mean, here's a guy who had all these managers and he didn't even have a simple will. Larry King wrote his will on a napkin. Tell people how important it is to have a will.
It is very important to have a will. Like Cal was saying, you're laying out where you want your assets to go, who you want to receive your assets. If you don't have a will, then the state is going to decide that for you. And we tell our clients, we don't ever want the laws of the state of Texas to decide where your assets go. And if you don't have an estate plan, if you don't have a will, that is what's going to happen. Number one, if you do have a will, you can tell everybody where you want your assets to go. And number two, it's much easier of a probate process or a process to wind up your estate when you have a will. If you don't have a will, you have to go through what's called the intestacy process. There has to be an heirship proceeding. You have to get witnesses. It's a lot more of an intense procedure. So just having a simple will in place avoids all of that, and you can pass your assets to who you want them to go to and not let someone else decide for you. So very, very important.
I got to tell you, I'm a real advocate of having an attorney do this for you. I know you hear ads out there, do it yourself will. Tell people why, Jonathan, why it's so important that people have an attorney handle their will.
Well, I've seen so many mistakes, and I guess that's good on our side because it gives us the work to correct those mistakes. But wills require specific ways of signing. Some people think they can just sign a will and that's okay. There's a lot of different requirements that they don't know. There's a lot of things that need to go into a will that they may not think of. So if you just do it online, it's just a simple process where you go in and click a few things, and there's no guarantees at all that it's going to be done correctly. And the majority of the time, it's not done correctly. And number one, maybe it's simple for the people that are doing it online, but it causes a lot more problem for their family on the back end by using those kind of services instead of using an attorney that's used to doing these processes and handling these types of items like wills and trusts and all those. We do that all the time. So it's better to have someone that's an expert doing that, so that when something does happen to you, it's easier for your family. You don't run into these issues where, hey, the will wasn't done correctly, so it's not valid. So where you said you wanted your assets to go, now they're going somewhere totally different, especially if you have a blended family situation from kids with different marriages. The intestacy laws aren't always friendly to those kind of situations. And if you do a will online and it's not valid, then you're going to create all sorts of interfamily problems. We see it all the time. So best to use someone that knows what they're doing to prevent problems for your family in the future.
Cal, one of the things I love about Julia's firm is you all do everything you can to keep your client out of probate. And probate, if you've never gone through it before, it's quite expensive. And so to have a firm that tries to keep you out of probate, what issues do you see when someone tries to handle their estate this way?
Sure. I actually will tell you that's what attracted me to the Dean Law Firm, was that we have a dedicated person that his job is really, now we call him a funding coordinator. And what that means is he's making sure your trust is funded with the stuff that you have when you sign that trust. The reason that's important is once it's inside the trust, it can avoid those probate and it can avoid going to court and getting somebody in there. And that is truly what I think a lot of attorneys lack, is they'll write you a beautiful estate plan. This isn't, I'm not trying to just sell our firm, but it's true. And it really is what attracted me here, is not just that we're going to make sure you have a good estate plan, we're going to make sure that it's followed through, so that what happens so frequently is you write this beautiful trust document and then you forget one asset. You forget that you had a savings account with Capital One and it never gets put in the trust. Well, now we're in probate dealing with that asset there. And you did all of this during your life. Here at Dean Law Firm, that's what we do. That's what we have, a dedicated person. His name's Michael. He's great. He goes to the bank with our clients. He does anything he can to make sure that the trust is properly funded, to avoid the probate situation and to avoid a situation where we're going to court just for one little measly account that maybe probate's barely covered. Probate's expensive, so it's barely even covered. You're not even getting anything back after that. So after you've spent the legal fees to try to recoup it. So that is one thing that we see happen a lot in the probate. Also, once the court gets involved, truly we're at the mercy of the court and how fast they want to move. Most people, when somebody passes away, for nothing else, they want things wrapped up so they can start their grieving process, so that they can start grieving the loss of their mother or their father or their loved one. And when you're tied up in court waiting on a judge to give you the rubber stamp of approval, it's just your energy isn't being focused in the right spot. And so that's truly what we want to avoid here, is just those probate issues. And probate in general can usually be avoided if planned for correctly.
Jonathan, what attracted you to the Dean firm?
I think it was, number one, Julia. When you meet Julia, of course, that, it's someone you want to be around and it's somewhere where you want to work, because she does things the right way and she's such a great person. Also, the team we have here, everybody is so closely knit. So when I came in and talked to everybody, we had a conference when I first was thinking about joining here, and I talked to everybody here. Everybody works so closely together, kind of like a fine-tuned machine. So, we have, everybody has their certain job and we get things done the right way and timely. So I think it was, initially it was Julia, and then meeting the team and being surrounded by such, good people, not just good at their job, but legitimately good-hearted people. It was very important to me. You don't see that all the time when you're in law firms or in the law field. So it's very refreshing here.
Well, I can see why Julie chose to hire both of you. Calla, when you're planning, what are you thinking about when you analyze someone's estate?
Sure. So the first question is, I always like to get the big picture. I like to know, of course, who your family members are, what family members might need some specific care or instruction. Little kids, you can't give them a check for $1, let alone $50, or let alone $100,000. You've got to plan for what are your beneficiaries' specific needs. Do they have special needs? Are they going to need to qualify for state or government benefits of some sort? And all of that, if you tell your attorney and you tell them everything, they can plan for those things. So for example, a child who has a sort of handicap may need special government assistance. And if you leave them your money in a regular trust, sometimes that can disqualify them. So that's one of the things that I always look for. I like to ask about personalities. What's your kid into? How old are they? Do they need you to protect them from yourselves? Are they going to marry an undesirable person? I like to just try to take care of every asset or every kind of just different aspect that might be there. Also, from the client's perspective, how old are they? Do they need to start looking at somebody that's going to be able to step in and take care of them if, for heaven forbid, they can't do it on their own? So I like to really truly get a big picture of what their day-to-day life looks like. And then, of course, what are their assets? What do we have to work with? Are there tax implications that we'd like to avoid? Do we need to avoid an estate tax? Do we need to gift things? So I like to get the big picture and then get into the nitty gritty as necessary and as needed. But I think what's so important, I think people spend their whole life making, whether it's $1 or a billion dollars, they've spent their whole life working towards this, and to protect it is what's so important. And for them to be able to take care of the best that they can, the people that they love, is what's important to me.
Jonathan, when it comes to divorce, no one ever plans on a divorce. But when you're planning someone's estate planning, that has to be kind of considered down the road, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it kind of depends. A lot of times with divorce, when you do like your ancillary documents, and even when you have, wills and whatnot, there's provisions in there that maybe these things are void if you become divorced, if you've named that person as an agent or as a beneficiary or anything of those sorts. So yes, that can come into play with your estate planning documents if a divorce does happen in the future. But what I always tell clients is if that is the situation, if you do get divorced, you definitely want to come back and see us, because we're going to want to redo your documents to make sure we've accounted for the situation that presents itself currently. Because, unfortunately, the odds are against everybody now. I think the divorce rate is almost over 50%. So we can, the laws and the way we draft documents kind of account for that. But the main thing is if something does happen, we want to relook at the estate plan and make sure that it's correct for the person, each of the people, when they separate.
Cal, we just got a text in from a listener. They want to know, how do you protect your pets when it comes to estate planning?
That's a big question. We actually get a lot. So you can set up what we call a pet trust. Inside your will or inside your estate plan, you can designate a person that will take care of your pets, and you leave them a sum of money to do so. Now, I always tell clients, pick somebody you really, 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 really trust, because there's nothing stopping them from taking Fluffy to a not desirable place and running away with the money. And that, because unfortunately, Fluffy cannot sue the trustee. So you pick someone you really trust, but there are ways and avenues inside of a trust to take care of that animal and to make sure that they continue to live the sort of life that they've grown accustomed to. Because our pets, they are our family. And sometimes, I know my dog is much more loyal than any of my other family members. My dog never repeats all the stuff I tell her. So I love that, and I love my dog. So I understand wanting to take care of them. And I think that's a conversation you need to have. And you can talk about the ins and outs and who's the best person to be sort of in charge of the pet when something happens, and how much money does the pet really need, and how long is the pet going to live, and things like that. So yeah, there are ways to take care of them for sure. And we definitely understand. Like I said, my dog's my best friend. So
it's such a huge thing now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's such a big deal now. We see it more and more. Yeah.
We just got another text from Ray. Love the show. I try to listen to it at least 1 or 2 times a month. Thank you for all the great information. What is the best way to choose an executor?
That's a good question. So I think it needs to be someone that you trust first and foremost. You need to have someone that you trust. A lot of times it's a family member. It can also have to do with locality. So if someone, lives across the country and you have someone that lives closer to you, you may want to choose someone that lives closer to you. It may be easier for them to basically go through the probate process because the executor is your fiduciary under your will. So number one, you want to have somebody that you can trust to rely on to basically fulfill your wishes. And you want to make sure it's not a burden on them in the long term with them having to travel. So if obviously the person that has to travel, down here is the best selection, then that's okay. But, if there's someone closer, that is a lot of times easier for them to manage that. So those are two of the kind of the considerations for that. But mainly you want to be someone that you really trust because they're going to fulfill your wishes under your will.
Excuse me, I just want to read this next one. What do you think are some of the best ways to look at when hiring? I'm going to let both of you answer this. When hiring an estate planning attorney.
I can try. I say trust. I say trust your gut always. If the person gives you the ick or makes you feel icky is the way I call it, or they don't pass the smell test, you don't want to hire them. Because you're an estate planning lawyer, not only are you entrusting them with a plan for your future, sometimes you're trusting them with a plan for your children's future. Also, you are giving them a lot of information about yourself. Like we have to have social security numbers, bank account numbers, and just by regular human nature, don't hand that stuff out to people. But you've got to give it to your estate planning attorney. You want to make sure that they're doing the right things with the information, that they're doing what's in your best interest, that they're not just, taking the information and running with it. Heaven forbid that happen. But it's really, truly about a trust. And I always say, if you like the person, if you feel like they're knowledgeable, because I think most estate planning lawyers are knowledgeable, whether they pass the internal, do you want to talk to them? I sometimes tell Jonathan, sometimes our job is being therapists. We need to talk, we need to listen to our clients, we need to talk to them, we need to understand what their best interest is. And you just want an attorney, or you should want an attorney that knows those, that's comfortable with them, that's going to do, even if they conflict with maybe what the attorney would want done in that situation, because we talk about such personal, medical issues and everything. So you want somebody who's going to listen, advocate for you, and do what's in your best interest. So again, I hate to bring it home, but it's always about trust to me.
Yeah, I think you really need an established firm. That's key. You want someone that's been around, and you want someone that practices in this area, right? I mean, a lot of people will kind of dabble in estate planning. They'll do criminal law, family law, and they'll do, wills and estate planning. But there's a lot more to estate planning than just wills. There's a lot, like Cal was talking about earlier, there's intricacies in families. There need to be trust, there may need to be asset protection, there may need to be tax planning. All of these are so intricate areas that you want someone that's keeping up with that, doing it on a daily basis, and not just somebody that's willing to draft a will for you. But I think number one is that established firm, and like Cal said, a firm you can trust, that's been around, that has people that have, trusted us, trusted the firm before, left good reviews. That's key, because there's a lot of personal information that's shared with estate planners when it comes to drafting your estate plan.
Well, I got to tell you this is your first show, and you will definitely be doing other shows with us. One of the things is the show goes by so fast. We've come to an end of the show. You both have done incredible. Let's give everybody your website address.
Sure. It's deanlawfirm.com. And I'm Callis Gregg, and this is Jonathan Sherman, and we've both been here. And then, of course, we have Julia, who is our supervisor.
The phone number is 281-277-3326. And again, I cannot thank you enough. This show will be replayed in 2 weeks, or you can just go to iHeart or YouTube, and you can pull up the show probably in the next 30 minutes. It's always there. Calla and Jonathan, thank you so much. God bless you, and I hope the weather stays safe for you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
God bless you too. Appreciate the time, and have a great weekend as well.
Great job, both of you. That's
Thank
you,
the
sir.
law firm. And we're going to go to break. We come back. We've got more Ask the Experts. We'll be right back.
K. Bender Rembaum is a full-service community association law firm dedicated to the representation of community associations throughout Florida. On kbrlegal.com, you can learn more about their offices in Pompano Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, Orlando, Tampa, as well as throughout Miami-Dade by appointment. Several K. Bender Rembaum attorneys are board-certified specialists in condominium and plan development law and assist clients with all matters of community association legal issues while keeping them up to date on new developments that affect their associations. K. Bender Rembaum is also a well-known provider of free legal education for managers and board members. Contact K. Bender Rembaum today by calling 800-974-0680. That's 800-974-0680 to reach any of their locations. You can also visit them online at kbrlegal.com or write to them at info@kbrlegal.com.
And we are back with the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV with your hosts, Steve-O, Sophia, and their expert guests. Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.